God. Rabbi, this presentation will be walking through the documentation I gave you earlier. I will restart the presentation. It was close to a month ago when tragedy struck. It's not funny. No. From the beginning. It was close to a month ago when tragedy struck. Yes. Kenny McCormick has died. Again. To my shock, that same afternoon, his younger sister Karen. Yes, that is her legit name in South Park. Do not ask how I knew that. Anyway, she came up to me with the shocking news. Turns out the McCormicks are Jewish through blood. Surprisingly now, Karen wants to turn back to her roots and do something good before Yom Kippur. There is just one problem. She has no idea what to do. Hence, she came to me for my excellence in explaining pretty much anything and making it understandable. We'll see how well it really goes. Regardless, I start from the very utmost basics, that there are two phases and right now she is in phase 1, Onayan, which is being in mourning before the body is buried. I also said that since this is the saddest time, you're not too fond of your loss. Which is why I quote the Mishnah telling Karen that one is exempt from tefillin, tefillah and all the mitzvot in the Torah. Applying it to her brother and father. This makes her fathom a question. She asks me that if it says that we are exempt from all mitzvot, then why does it still mention tefillin and tefillah? I answer her saying that to some people who are so accustomed to doing those mitzvot, you may find them more of a routine than a mitzvah. Karen still wasn't sure if she should still do mitzvot or not. So I brought up a commentator named Rashi who says that you still could do mitzvot. To even help with that statement, I brought up another group of commentators called Tosfot who say the same thing as Rashi but personally wouldn't. By then, Karen got the point. She probably believed me anyway. She also told me to speed it up since she is falling asleep, so let's move on. I asked Karen if the body is being prepared properly. Meaning the people do their needed charades. Which is making Kenny the same as when he was brought into the world. They wrap the body in a talit and watch over the body until the ceremony. Karen was pretty sure her family had the Jewish Burial Society prep Kenny. Finally, I tell her about the ceremony. Although the McCormicks are poor, they don't have to pay so much for everything because this is all supposed to be inexpensive. But to make it all kosher, they should try to follow these steps. They should have the body taken through escort. Once there, your family will greet it and will give their eulogies. Later, friends and family can also give their eulogies. Next, proceed with the prayers which would usually be done by the South Park rabbi. Yes, there is one. I myself don't know the direct translation, but I do know it's all centered around returning to God and having the soul cross over to the heavens. Or hell, I don't know, but if you've watched South Park, you may know why I'm debating. Also, sorry Rabbi if I'm burning your eyes out and only saying this, allowing me to continue rolling the clip. end of the prayers you will need to say Kaddish among 10 other people. And after that you will tear your clothing. But unlike Hulk Hogan, you will just make a small tear near the heart for the parents on the left. And the others will tear on the right side. Karen suddenly awakens from her slumber asking me if she needs to say it. I tell her that in the worst case scenario it would be said was with a man covered by walls, and even it would be her mom that would say it. I didn't bother to explain Mechitzat to her now. Plus I already knew Kenny as her brother Kevin and his father who can say it is dead. Karen also wonders if that is it. Guess she forgot that I've been only explaining the first of the 2 stages. And speaking of the second stage, let's get right to it. I explained to Karen that this second stage is after Kenny is buried, which is Adel. What happens afterwards is that you will go through sitting Shiva, where you sit on the floor, or a very low chair and mourn. During this time people will pay you a Shiva call or a visit, and they'll sit down with you and comfort you. Your family may not say anything, but if they do or ask you to join them in something that would help get their minds off of Kenny, then they should join. And I mean that the possible task is actually logical. After that week there is another month where you can relax, but there are some restrictions like no music or shaving. There is an additional 2 months for the parents. While that happens, and even after for a whole year, your brother of dad should say Kaddish for Kenny. And when the year is over, every year after they should say Kaddish again on the day he died to show love and memory. At that moment I realized something. I lost track of time and I'm halfway through 4th period, so I start sprinting. Just before I left, Karen had one last question. She wanted to know that when you sit Shiva, if her grandfather should sit. Yes, Kenny actually does have a grandfather. I told her that an individual sit Shiva for their spouse, parent, sibling, child. Which means no, her grandfather doesn't have to sit Shiva unless he wants to. Well, I think that's it for this presentation. You 9th graders could look at some of my other projects if you ever need inspiration for your own. I'm just advertising for time. Roll the credits.